There are a ton of powerful characters within the Marvel Universe. I mean, this is a world full of superheroes after all, so that's kinda to be expected. However, today I'm not gonna be talking about any of those costumed heroes, nor any of their villains. At least, not the traditional ones. Nope. Instead, I'm gonna be discussing beings that tend to make them look like unpowered simpletons by comparison. The Celestials. Specifically, a small handful of the most powerful, ranked by how much they could kick your butt. Yes, I'm talking about you in particular, Greg. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. So, alright, I'm gonna start off this video with something that at least a couple of you are going to disagree with, but I felt like I should include Ego the Living Planet on here somewhere. Now here's the thing, within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Ego himself claims to be a Celestial. However, whether or not that statement is true is heavily debated, especially now that we've seen full-on Celestials in the Eternals. That being said, his claim hasn't actually yet been debunked. Even the people behind Eternals, when asked about it, don't openly dispute it. So, by that logic, he kind of qualifies for this list. Kind of. In the comics, though, he is decidedly not a Celestial. Instead, he is classified as a Genius Loci, which is a fancy way of saying that he's a location that gains sentience. Because apparently there are enough of those that there is a separate term just for them. So there you go. Ego isn't a Celestial, unless he is within the MCU. Jury is still out on that one. Either way, I'm going to put him on this list just in case, but I'm purposely keeping him at the very bottom. I guess this would also mean that I should put Star-Lord on here somewhere, because that would technically mean that he's half Celestial, but again, that is really open for debate. If Ego were to be confirmed to be a Celestial, both of them would probably be higher up on this list, but as it stands, this is as high as they're gonna go. I felt like I needed to include at least Ego on this list just because, he did claim to be one. However, I don't really feel like he belongs on this list, but, he's here anyways, just in case. So here's a Celestial that might seem just a tad bit different from all the other ones out there. When you envision a Celestial, you probably picture something bigger than our tallest skyscraper. Something that would make normal human beings look like ants by comparison. You probably don't picture something that's only about the size of the Hulk. And yet, there's Gamiel the Manipulator, one of the youngest of the Celestials who was assigned to watch over Earth. Don't let his small stature fool you, however. He is still a fully empowered Celestial, capable of wreaking some major havoc if he ever set out to do so. And he already has in the past. You know where he got that Manipulator title? He got that by sparking the 4 million year long war between the Skrulls and the Kree. The one that we hear about constantly. The one that shaped the future of the cosmos forever. It was kind of a big deal. Though one could argue that it was actually a little bit of a mistake and Gamiel is actually just a big idiot. But, he is still a Celestial, which means he's still a being of immense power. The Progenitor may very well be one of the most important beings in the entirety of the Marvel Universe, nay, the multiverse. And odds are, you probably haven't heard about him. The Progenitor was one of the original Celestials, an Alpha Celestial, that made his way to Earth billions of years ago before there was really any life there at all. It wasn't really much of a social call, however, as at the time he was infected by the Horde and his body was rapidly deteriorating. However, his death brought with it all new life, as his blood seeping into the Earth altered it, directly leading to the existence of superhuman beings later on in history. There is a reason why he is referred to by people as the Father of the Avengers. Later on, his corpse was recovered, cleaned up by the people of Wakanda, and turned into a new base for the Avengers, known simply as Avengers Mountain, meant to serve as not just a base of operations, but a symbol representing the strength of the world and what will happen to those who dare to threaten Earth. So yeah, if it wasn't for the Progenitor coming to Earth all those years ago, we wouldn't have the Avengers. We wouldn't have the X-Men. We would have none of that. Kind of crazy when you stop and think about it. You can't really talk about the Progenitor without talking about his alleged lover, Zreb the Aspirant, who followed the Progenitor to Earth hoping to reunite with him, only to come face to face with the Ancient Avengers. The Ancient Avengers is something that's always a ton of fun to talk about. Basically, they are a team of super beings that came together thousands of years before the team that we are all familiar with did. Made up of members such as the first Black Panther, Odin, Iron Fist, Agamotto, Phoenix, Starbrand, and a Ghost Rider that sits atop a woolly mammoth wreathed in flames, which is just about as awesome as you can get. The Avengers managed to seal Zreb away, who had become deranged due to being infected by the Horde. I've mentioned the Horde before, but I feel like I haven't actually explained what they are. Basically, they are a parasitic life form that feeds upon Celestials. They're kind of the natural predators of the Celestials. The dogs to Celestials' cats, as it were. It's a really basic summarization of what they are, but you get the idea. In fact, there are some people who theorize that Ego is a member of the Horde, and that him claiming to be a Celestial is all just manipulation to try to, get some of that good Celestial stuff. I don't know, I'd buy that for $1. Millennia later, Loki released Zreb from his prison, and used him to bring about the final host of Dark Celestials, which were basically all Celestials who had been driven mad by Horde infection. This group, including Zreb, proved to be too much for the modern day Avengers, and it actually took a team up between the heroes and the rest of the normal, non-infected Celestials to take them out. Though even then they couldn't be completely destroyed, simply teleported away from Earth to parts unknown. That last part alone should tell you just how powerful Zreb and the rest of the Dark Celestials like him really are. Some really potent stuff. So I know that this video has so far been very comic focused, but I've got to break and talk about the MCU for just a second. And the first Celestial that we ever got to see on film, Eson the Searcher. While not as prolific as his comic counterpart, who has done quite a bit, being a part of both the first and fourth hosts on Earth, the MCU Eson hasn't quite done the same amount of stuff. However, he does hold a rather noteworthy distinction, being one of the first creatures that we ever saw use an Infinity Stone without a fancy gauntlet to help him out. That's right, Eson was the Celestial that was shown in Guardians of the Galaxy using the energy of the Power Stone to wipe out an entire planet in that video hologram thingy that the Collector showed the Guardians, while giving us some solid exposition about what the heck the Infinity Stones even were. Something that at the time, most film fans might not have been aware of. If nothing else, Eson should at least get some credit for playing a bit of a major role within the MCU, even if he wasn't actually named when he did so. Now, the comic version was basically exactly like every other major Celestial. He was directly responsible for the sinking of the continent of Lemuria beneath the Pacific Ocean, which is pretty impressive, I guess. But, there are Celestials out there that destroy entire planets, so not all that exciting, all things considered. Godhead here is probably the perfect example of how cruel Celestials can be to the lower life forms that they watch over. Godhead silently watched over the planet Viscardi for around 12 billion years, watching the inhabitants grow and evolve, developing vast civilizations. Civilizations that naturally began to look towards the cosmos once an alien being fell to the surface of their world. However, each time they tried to leave, Godhead stopped them. Eventually, one Viscardi pleaded with him to allow them to leave. In response, he created the Black Vortex, a sort of cosmic monolith that the people began fighting over, until only one of them remained. When asked why he did that, why he brought about the destruction of an entire race, he simply turned away and left the planet. Taking off into the cosmos, he so viciously denied the Viscardi people. Damn! That's ice cold. The Black Vortex went on to become a bit of a cosmic relic, an object of power sought after by many different forces across time, with the X-Men and the Guardians of the Galaxy ultimately teaming up to try to destroy it, though only actually managing to seal it away after many battles trying to keep it out of the hands of numerous villains. So Godhead might not have really done anything all that powerful personally, nothing that really showed off his raw power, but he did leave a rather large impact on the cosmos as a whole. So you gotta give him credit for that at least. Also just being a straight up monster for basically no reason. Some really horrible stuff. Exitar the Executioner might not be the most powerful Celestial out there, but he certainly does have one thing over all the others. The most badass name. But that aside, the name is well earned. Exitar's role among the Celestials is the one who sets out to destroy the worlds that the other Celestials have deemed unworthy. Meaning, he's the one that has to do all the dirty work while the rest of the Celestials just chill out. Not really, but you get what I mean. And this role has put him in the sights of a lot of very powerful beings that would like to see him stopped. no matter the cost. He even once came into conflict with the Watchers, which is itself very impressive, considering the fact that they aren't really supposed to intervene at all. So you know that he had to be up to some crazy shenanigans to have them jump into the fray. He actually wound up killing the One, the being that served as a sort of living repository for all of the collective knowledge of the Watchers. Though this wound up being a bit of a mistake, as Sue Storm came down and annihilated his brain, effectively killing him. Can't really say that I can think of too many people who have managed to kill what is effectively a god, so major props to Sue for that one. Not to worry though, as Exitar is really more of a title than any specific being, so another one eventually showed up and took his place, which is just about as horrible as it sounds. How could I do this list without including Arishem, the leader of the 4 hosts, who is responsible for wiping out nearly the entire deviant race with a massive flood known as the Great Cataclysm. This is the Celestial, the one that serves as the face of the entire race whenever they have to deal with humanity, eternal or otherwise. Power level wise, he is the perfect example of what makes Celestials massive threats to basically anyone and anything that gets on their bad sides. He once managed to shake off an attack from Odin, Zeus, and Vishnu, who struck out at him all at once as if they were nothing. Then he was able to strike back with a blow that proved to be far more potent than anything those 3 gods could withstand. This is the guy who melted the Odin sword, a weapon prophesized to bring about the end of all existence if it was even so much as unsheathed. So that alone should really show you what Arishem is capable of. Though this power ultimately turned out to not be enough to save him, as when the Dark Celestials were rampaging about, he was one of the ones that bit the big one. Though Arishem's body falling to Earth was what tipped off the Avengers to the coming battle, so I guess in the end that ultimately worked out for the best. Tiamut, the Dreaming Celestial, is definitely one deserving of a spot high up on this list. Before his imprisonment, he was easily one of the most important of all, as he served as the communicator, tasked with alerting the Fulcrum to the findings of those who traverse the universe, and was the one meant to disperse his orders amongst them all. The Fulcrum, by the way, is like this big cosmic being that actually watches over all the Celestials. He's sort of like the boss that looks over the middle managers that are the Celestials. Because yes, while the Celestials do seem like these all-powerful beings, they aren't the top of the cosmic hierarchy. Not even close. And Tiamut did this job for quite a while, up through the first host and into the second. During that time, he created the Eternal Makari personally, and even brought the Deviant race into existence. Though that last point is just what the Deviants themselves claim, it hasn't actually been 100% proven. Whether he created them or not isn't actually that important, as either way, he managed to anger several other Celestials who wound up imprisoning him, stripping him of his identity, and basically leaving him to rot, turning him into the Dreaming Celestial. And it definitely took a few of them to do that, as Tiamut is one of, perhaps the most powerful Celestial. This guy is such a beast that Galactus was openly terrified of him, and the Watcher was unable to see anything around his awakening. This guy was the only one who ever dared to question the Fulcrum. Even Celestials who ascended and became more powerful beings didn't risk doing that. Heck, even our final entry on this list wasn't ever that bold. A+ segue, John, that was fantastic. It really shouldn't surprise anyone that the one above all is ranked at number 1 on this list. He really is the one ranked above all. I'm sorry, that was really bad. The leader of the Celestials, OAA as I'm choosing to call him, is rarely seen by anyone outside of the main group of Celestials. In fact, if this guy shows up, you know that it means some serious business. And you best hope that that business doesn't put you on their bad side, Greg, cause his power is nigh on unlimited. He can withstand nuclear explosions as if it were nothing, create black holes on a whim, and bend the very fabric of space and time to fit his needs. And if he doesn't feel like breaking a sweat while crushing you like a bug, he can just telekinetically hurl planets at you as if they were spitwads. He's basically God. Capital G God. At least as close as you can get to them. Well, okay, not really. As I had previously pointed out, there are actually other beings above him in the cosmic hierarchy, such as the Living Tribunal, for example. But I feel like I've made my point. OAA is certainly the most powerful Celestial, hands down. Hey there everybody, I'm John Aljets, I made this video, and I want to know what you think. How would you rank the Celestials? Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, or go ahead and shoot me a response over on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to CBR for more great videos just like this in the future.